When the Washington Wizards traded Russell Westbrook in exchange for 3 excellent role players and a draft pick from the Lakers, I thought it was a good trade. I thought the role players were getting overlooked. Kyle Kuzma had got this reputation that was just unfair on him as a player because he was never meant to be a star, or at least that's not how I saw it, and he turned out to be a solid role player, and that's what he is right now, but we'll get into that, of course. But I think it was an unfair reputation on a lot of these guys because they were on the Lakers, and hence they got overlooked as a collective in particular, so I thought that was a good trade at the time. However, I did not forecast them starting the season 8-3, looking like one of the best teams in the NBA through 11 games. I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you if they're going to remain one of the best teams in the NBA, but what I can say is so far, they look legit. So far, they look deep. So far, they've got a coach that looks like he knows what he's doing. No offense to Scott Brooks, he did have some good seasons in Washington, so I won't completely disrespect him, but they've brought in a new coach in Wes Unseld Jr., who's done a fantastic job, and they have a team. I know, it's crazy to think, but sometimes not just having 2 guys that look like stars on paper or 2 guys that are going to put up fantastic numbers, not throwing shade at Westbrook, but you know what I mean. Maybe having more of a team, more of a collective, more of a buy-in in general, and more depth is going to lead to more wins, and so far in Washington, that's what we're seeing. And let's talk about that. Now, before I go any further, if you could drop a like on the video, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I make content like this pretty much every single day, and it just helps out a ton. It's free. That would be cool. But anyways, let's not waste any more time. Through 11 games, the Wizards only trail the Warriors for the best record in the league. And what's exciting for Wizards fans is often you can look at these records through 11 games and you can determine if it's a fluke, right? Sometimes teams will win 6 close games to start the season, or maybe they'll have a really easy schedule to start. It could be numerous reasons for why it could be fluky. But Washington so far, there's nothing really been fluky about it. They've been a top defense, they've been an average offense, and they've had a tough schedule, actually one of the tougher ones in the league. And all whilst Bradley Beal hasn't even been playing that well, their best player. So yeah, there's nothing really fluky about what they're doing. What they're doing is, I mentioned it, but their defense has been carrying the way. Their defense, the 4th ranked defense in the league, and this is a great indicator. Okay, fans, if you want to get excited, the last 5 seasons, the top 5 defensive rating teams, the worst record in those 5 seasons. The worst record out of those 25 teams that have been a top 5 defense the last 5 seasons was the Golden State Warriors last year at 39-33. So if you're a top 5 defense, unless your offense is all-time bad, all-time stinky, which we know the Wizards aren't because they've got Bradley Beal, they've got players, yeah. If you're a top 5 defense, you're going to win a lot of games. And so far, the Wizards have been one of the best defenses in the league, and it's actually been led by their 3-point defense. And sometimes you'll hear people say it is luck, but I look at the New York Knicks last year and I see some parallels between the defense. 2 teams that you don't immediately see a star defensive player there, but you have a coach that has brought in a system that players are buying into, and more importantly, you have players that aren't liabilities on the floor that are going to defend, like Denny Avdia, who's come in his 2nd year, has been really good defensively. You've had guys buy in. Daniel Gafford obviously made a huge impact last season. Bradley Beal has brought in on the defensive end of the floor. Spencer Dinwiddie. You get the point. 1 through 11. These guys are all playing defense, and that's a huge reason for preventing threes, because at the end of the day, 3-point shooting and 3-point defense, a lot of it comes down to rotations, communication, chemistry, and effort. And that's what Washington are doing. Now, they're 6% below average in terms of teams are shooting a ridiculous percentage against the Wizards from 3. Like, that's not going to maintain itself. And why I say they're familiar to the New York Knicks is they didn't either have a star defensively. They didn't have a Rudy Gobert, a Draymond Green. They just had a collective of players that bought into Tibbs' system and were ready to defend, and they also had the best 3-point defense in the league. So I see some similarities there. A positive for Washington, there's a lot of positives in this video right now, is they've got a better offense. They've got way more talent than what the Knicks had last season. So if they can recapture what the Knicks did as a defense last year, it doesn't have to be the Knicks. That's just a recent example of what we've seen. But in general, a team that doesn't have amazing talent defensively, but is all bought in and also doesn't have really any liabilities. That's what we're seeing with Washington, and I think that can lead to at least a top 10 defense, which will lead to a lot of wins there. And then offensively, there's a lot of depth on this team. We've already seen guys have big performances. Spencer Dinwiddie, Kyle Kuzma the other night came up with a couple of clutch threes. Montrez Harrell has had big performance after big performance, looking like he's sixth man of the year self again. I said Bradley Beal hasn't even really been that good to start the season. There's all of these guys that are performing. Oh, Rui Hachimura's not even playing. Thomas Bryant, two guys that were two of their best scorers and best players just last season before getting injured. There's some depth on this team. There's some serious depth on this team. If we were looking at one area of concern offensively, it's actually ironic because you look at their three-point defense, their three-point offense is actually slightly concerning. They're not creating many open looks from three, which is a bit of a surprise considering the dribble penetration you get from guys like Dinwiddie and Bradley Beal. But their three-point offense isn't very good. It's actually towards the bottom in terms of attempts, makes, and open looks. So that's a concern. I think it'll all improve once Bradley Beal gets into more rhythm just in general as an offensive player. You're going to have Thomas Bryant come back who could really help the spacing the floor, which will help for a number of reasons. Spencer Dinwiddie is still finding his rhythm as a playmaker and as a creator, even though he has been good to start the season. So there's still room for optimism in terms of their offense, and that's just one aspect of the floor. You can be a good offense and not be a fantastic three-point shooting team. I know, it's crazy. Ideally, you can be a good one because you look across their team, they brought in Corey Kispert. Davis Bertans is kind of stealing a living right now, but he should still be able to shoot the ball. Like, he should still be able to do that, even though he can't do much else. Bradley Beal will get back to his best three-point shooting, and Kyle Kuzma's been really impressive, KCP. I think there's enough there to believe this isn't just a bad three-point shooting team. They just haven't really been creating enough looks or taking enough threes. But on the flip side, at the rim, the opposite end of the scale, well, they're actually getting to the rim a lot and finishing at the rim a lot. And a lot of this comes down to one man that deserves a lot of credit. I talked about those three guys. All of them got their slander. KCP kind of came around. Lakers fans realized, oh, he's actually a good role player. But Montrez Harrell, Kyle Kuzma got a lot of slander for what they did in the playoffs and in general got overlooked in the trade. And Kyle Kuzma's been fantastic in his own regard in terms of defensive intensity, rebounding the ball, shooting the ball at nearly 40% on 6.5 attempts a game from three, catch and shoot, relocations. Fantastic. Kyle Kuzma's a really good role player. Montrez Harrell, sixth man of the year himself, he's been back to it because he's averaging damn near 20 and 10 in under 30 minutes a night off the bench. 18 and 9, 64% from the field, 85% from the line is absurd. There's literally no other way to describe that. You look at some of these advanced metrics and they've got him like 5th at MVP voting and MVP rankings, should I say, box plus minus and all of those stats. And while that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, what can't be exaggerated is his impact off the bench. If the Wizards start the game slow, you know he's coming in and making a huge impact. You know he's giving you 18 and 10 pretty much any night. You saw it against the Cavs, a team that has been really good this season, a team that has Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, the Twin Towers, and he puts up 22 and 11, or the game before, he's just putting up 20-point games at will. Looks like he's getting better as the season goes on. This is someone who just has this combination of speed, strength, and finishing ability. Like, he's actually skilled for his size, which he has never got enough credit for. His skill level has never got enough credit. It's always been, oh, Montrez Harrell is just going to run the floor and just grab offensive rebounds, which he does, but he's also got a lot of skill, and he's fantastic in the pick and roll. He's fantastic at finishing at the rim, and getting 18 and 10 off the bench at that efficiency. We saw it in the Clippers. We saw it 2 seasons ago when the Clippers were not expected to be a good team. They won 50 games. He was a huge reason. He's looking like a huge reason right now for the Wizards overperforming as well, should I say, overperforming. So Montrez Harrell deserves a ton of credit. And when I look at their team, I think he's been the standout in terms of surprises, although we've seen it before, so it shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but just in terms of what he's been able to do, so impressive. All of those Lakers guys, all of these guys. You even look at a guy like Denny Avdia, who hasn't been fantastic offensively, but he's had some huge defensive performances and some huge moments, or just across the board. I mentioned it. Spencer Dinwiddie, Bradley Beal, Aaron Holiday playing 15 minutes off the bench or whatever he is. He comes in and plays an impact. You've got Raul Neto. This is a deep team, and they're still adding back 2 of their best players. Figure out the rotations. I'm not even going to try and bother figuring out the rotations because that will take a smart man, and I think Wes Unseld Jr. is a smart man, so I'll leave him to it. They've got some rotations to figure out, but it's a good thing because Washington have actually gone from a team that struggled for depth, a team that struggled to put good players on the floor, to now they're going to leave good players off the floor. It's a good issue to have, and they're going to have that issue very soon because Rui's going to be back, Thomas Bryant's going to be back, and this team looks the goods right now. They really do. Offensively, they've been below average, but there's some clear indicators that they'll get better. There's some clear reasons for that. Spencer Dinwiddie's coming off an ACL. He's been solid, but he can get better. Bradley Beal has started the season pretty much as badly as he has in years, so he's only going to get better from here. There's still guys that are acclimating to the environment. I talked about Rui and Thomas Bryant. This is a team that looks the goods right now, and it shows that maybe opting for depth, maybe getting chemistry, maybe getting a buy-in, and shout out to Wes Unseld Jr. because I talked about the three-point defense, but to have that level of chemistry and that level of focus from all of these guys, with a lot of these guys being new players on a new team with a new coach, you could really excuse them for not really being in sync all the time, but defensively they've been in sync a lot. They don't have amazing talent, but they've got a lot of work ethic and not really any liabilities. And that's Washington so far. Do I know if they're going to be the best team in the league for the rest of the season? No. But all I do know is they've been pretty damn good, and it looks like continuing.